Good night, everyone. My name is Tim, and welcome back to another edition of the NTA Live. Tonight we're discussing budget. I want to introduce my co-hosts here, Simple Diet Perfect. Peaceful introduction, and we're starting off with national security, which is pretty obvious because we have Lieutenant Commander Norman Dindial as well as Gary Griffiths.
Thank you very much, Tim. The topic of national safety and security has been very prevalent, not only post-budget as it pertains to post-budget discussions, but it has been a topic that has been on the lips, the hearts and minds of persons for many months. We currently stand at a rate of almost 50 murders. Is it per day, Gary? Per month, 50 murders per month. And we're going towards an average of approximately 600 by the end of this year. Just as of today's date, which is the 11th of October, there was an assassination attempt on the life of the Deputy Commissioner of Prisons. Gary, I want to start with you. I recall some time ago in budgets passed, or was it as you sat as either Commissioner of Police or Minister of National Security, where you identified that one of the things you wanted to put into place was to ensure that persons who held high office in positions of national security will provide with bulletproof vehicles. Where are we on that?
Definitely Nicole. Can I call you Nicole?
You certainly can.
Nicole, yes. Both as the Minister of National Security and the Commissioner of Police, it was critical to ensure that those persons who are there to protect us, they must have that degree of security so that they can be protected. It was common sense. So as the Minister of National Security, I drafted in the budget, which is what we were expecting for the next 8 budgets after I left as Minister of National Security, to provide some degree of armored vehicles to protect our law enforcement heads and also the officers who would be at the front line willing to volatile situations to prevent themselves from being killed. Unfortunately, this administration is totally clueless and they do not either understand the importance or they disregard the relevance of protecting the lives of those persons who are there to protect us. So when they had opened the Canada's police station, the present Prime Minister had the audacity to say, I do not know why Gary as the Commissioner of Police wants the police to have SUVs, why do they have sedans? And therein lies the problem. We have politicians in this administration who do not understand their role and function, where policy making is critical, especially as it comes to a budget. The budget, when I was Minister of National Security, that is the time you'll be able to push your policies as much as possible, whether as Minister, whether it was the Rapid Response Unit, the Emergency Response Patrol, the Operational Command Center, the National Operations Center, the National Security Special Operations Group. That's where you push your policies, you push technology, and that because that now becomes the catalyst towards crime reduction in that the police and so forth, they will operationalize those policies. They did not do that. For 8 years, they have disregarded the importance of providing armored vehicles for the heads of the protective services and also for the frontline officers. Unfortunately, and for a degree of hypocrisy I must add, is that the politicians, when I pushed as a Commissioner of Police to get armored vehicles, several armored vehicles did come to Trinidad and Tobago, but to be used for politicians to have themselves protected, who are already protected by several police officers 24/7. So this Deputy Commissioner of Prisons, those vehicles should have been for him, the Commissioner of Police, the Chief of Defense Staff, the heads of the protective services, and also the frontline officers who have to go into volatile situations on a daily basis in hotspot areas. But again, Kitrawi believes that it's better for them to be in sedans, whilst you as politicians have the luxury, the comfort, and the security of the same armored vehicles.
Norman, I just want to bring you in here because Gary mentioned something about suitability of vehicles. How does that apply from a marine perspective and a maritime perspective?
Well, in the budget statement by the Honorable Minister, he mentioned in his speech that he's going straight back to border patrols to the coastal protection unit, the river unit that Gary that Gary had introduced or reintroduced. Some of these vessels that he has thanked the US for providing, they're not good or fit for class. And I say this, because if you go down and see this vessel, now, the minister was being nothing short of what we say in, the old people used to say, plum, Peter plum, where you put your finger in the pie and you pull out a plum and you sit there. A little jackal, actually. And that's what he's doing with the US. Because these riverine patrol vessels that we have gotten from the United States, they can only hold about 2 people. They're on speed. They have a large radar boom that has high center of gravity, but you can't use it. If you're using this radar boom when you're going into these riverine areas, it's a mangrove swamp. You're not going to see anything you do. So the radar itself is incapacitated. So by you telling the people that this vessel that you have done for the United States, the use of the detect anyway, it's a waste of time. The Coast Guard can't use it, the riverine people can't use it. He further goes on to say that he's going to build a place in Firearms. Firearms has no rivers. The rivers are where? On the west coast. You have the rivers in Caroni, you have the Golino River, you have the Orange Grove. The best place to put any facility would have been in Sealots. So you put a place in Sealots where your vessels can stay from Sealots and launch from there and go down into the whole riverine area. Not in Caroni. You even have a riverine vessel from Caroni. They come all the way down to the river's mouth. By the time you reach there, you have no fuel, and the vessels can't get there. So Sealots is one of the main areas I would have reintroduced or repurposed the Caroni riverine area. Now, as we stand and as we speak now, Gary had placed them at Heliport. They are housed right now with Coast Guard at Heliport. And that sort of patrol in that area is being bolstered by the Coast Guard in the area for small vessels in that area. So there, it's being done there. But having something in Caroni is defeating the purpose. We have nothing in the riverine area and in the estuaries to do it. And the vessels that we got from the US. And I'm glad to see that we'll be talking about this front. And early on this evening, I mentioned how fruitful we're going to be. And for me, we have reached a stage where we have to become truthful now to the public. The Minister of Energy hides behind disclosure statements that we can't disclose our energy deals or how much we make. But we have people that have to be put them in place. We need to know, but that's fine. But what we do as security and the hide behind accountability, the veil of accountability, we say we cannot disclose anything because it's a matter of national security. And we do not want to tell the public because the public is going to be fearful. What you have opened tonight, the public is totally fearful. Where we have reached a place where we're looking at alarms. Where our previous commissioner was bringing vehicles that counter this threat. We had an assassination attempt this afternoon. The public is fearful. I am fearful. And I'm prepared now to speak the truth because the public can no longer withstand.
The public is fearful. The Minister of National Security has said that he has apologized for this fear. The Commissioner of Police says to breathe. If you were in this position, Gary, and either Minister of National Security or Commissioner of Police, what would you have been doing at this juncture?
It is definitely leadership by example, and that is what we require. You see what is happening right now in the Middle East. Right now in Trinidad and Tobago, we are under threat, we are under siege. There are virtual terrorists in this country. Individuals with automatic weapons that can fire 35 rounds in 3 seconds. And yet this man has the audacity, Fitzgerald Hines, to continue to speak about the concern of illegal firearms. The main concern is illegal firearms, which the US Embassy told me as a Commissioner of Police, over 95 to 97% of illegal firearms entering the country come from legal ports of entry. But besides that, to be able to protect our borders, they just do not know what to do. So whether I was Commissioner of Police or Minister of National Security, as a minister then, I was putting a 3-tiered approach to deal with securing our borders. It is a different language that PNM did not understand. The first tier was from shoreline to 2 miles out. That involved interceptors, fast interceptors, be able to patrol around the island, inclusive of even hovercraft that we were going to acquire. The second tier would be from 2 miles to 12 miles, using medium-sized vessels, such as the downwind vessels, to be able to patrol those areas and to work in tandem with the interceptors and also the drones. And then you have the third tier, which is from 12 miles to 200 miles out, which secures your exclusive economic zone. That is where the OPPs come in. but the decisions made by this administration, starting with the OPVs, which is a roadmap for them, the OPVs, the cost was 2.4 billion TT dollars. I asked persons in Trinidad and Tobago, please type BAE/corruption. BAE/corruption. You will find 17 countries that pay kickback to government officials from that company. And why? When we were acquiring those vessels for 2.4 billion, we were able, as the security advisor at the time, I did research and spoke to the officials in Colombia, Israel, and Korea, and we were getting the same OPVs for 400 million each, which is 1.2 billion less than what we would have paid for the 3 OPVs. So if people ever want to know why, in all the budget presentations, they speak about the OPVs, somebody missed a kickback of probably 1.2 billion TT dollars. And then we continue to speak about maritime security. The government, the PNM at the time, they acquired 6 hostile vessels, and the hostile vessel, with all the research and the input of Coast Guard, Mr. Man went to Australia. He got these vessels in Australia without speaking to the officials in Coast Guard, where my comrade would have been probably at the same at that time still. And then lo and behold, the vessels were made for leaks. So these 6 vessels, anyone again, if you don't believe me, go to Anchorage just by Hartscott, you'll see 6 vessels marooned for the last 15 years because after 1 month in the water, they were not conducive to our waters. So we lost hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars. The budget presentation for us to go back into one of the 8 policies that Minister Edwards spoke about was reintroducing the damming vessels. The vessels were there. The damming vessels cost 1.2 billion less than the 3 OPVs, but could have done the exact thing that the OPVs could have done with hundreds of millions annually, less in maintenance, less manpower strength, less cost, and they decided to shut it down for 8 years. And because of that now, they're trying to reignite it, and even so, they still went to Australia to acquire 2 hostile vessels to do the same thing that the damming vessels could have done. It shows total irresponsibility, hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars wasted to acquire 2 hostile vessels from Australia when the 6 damming vessels could do the exact thing. It shows in this budget presentation they did nothing as it pertains to securing our borders, and they have done nothing as it pertains to trying to secure citizens of this country.
Gary, I want to go back to the damming vessels. You were part of that team that would have initially bought in those vessels. Those vessels sat down for 8 years. Isn't it an admission as such that when the budget presentation said it was going to reignite, refurbish, or whatever, use the vessels? Isn't that an admission that the narrative that you're peddling about the damming vessels being not fit for purpose or not correct, it's not an admission that they were wrong?
Yeah, it was a lie. They blatantly lied to the country. Those damming vessels, as I said, cost 1.2 billion less than the 3 OPVs, and these were 4 damming patrol vessels in addition to 2 utility vessels. So those 4 vessels could have gone out, spent the same time the OPVs could have stayed on because the utility vessels would provide fuel, water, transfer the troops. And it meant that we could have done the same thing. And those damming vessels are used in 17 other countries. 17 other countries. The hostile vessels we just got recently, it's used in 2 countries, Australia and Trinidad and Tobago. So those damming vessels were there. For 8 years, out of bad mind, they refused to use it. And we qualified that I want to go back into the budget presentation for national security. Because this is what he did. It was a regurgitation of 8 policies that we had when I was Minister of National Security and Commissioner of Police. I mean, there were 117 policies that were shut down, dismantled, removed, plug was pulled. And by doing that, the country suffered. In 2 years ago, police trust and confidence in the police was 55%. It was the highest. Now it is among the lowest. The crime was at its lowest in 70 years. Now it is at its highest 2 years later. And it has nothing to do with the police officers. It has to do with poor leadership, irresponsible actions by those in authority. And the budget is the time where it is you're supposed to push and push hard to peg back criminals. That's what I did as the Minister of National Security. So you come with your big plan to increase the recruit intake. So the recruit intake, you stayed for 8 years. You saw what I did as the Minister of National Security by tripling the number of recruits annually by putting 300 recruits by moving the recruit training from the academy, which is something that was there a couple of 100 years ago. You can't keep maintaining that and increasing the recruit intake using the academy. So I thought out the box. We went to the Chagramas Convention Center, 350 recruits instead of 100. Because if you stay in the academy, you only recruiting 200 per annum and you lose 200 because of retirement and so forth. So we can never get close to our established strength. We did it. It was the closest we reached our established strength. For 8 years, from Edmund Dillon as Minister of National Security, Stuart Young and Fitzgerald Hines, out of either incompetence or ignorance, they refused to do exactly what we did for 8 years. So you come in a budget 8 years later to do exactly what I did as a minister. But guess what? By doing it now, it is going to cost the taxpayers $13 million to refurbish that same Chagramas Convention Center when it should have been used annually. Had that been the case, there would have been 1,400 extra police officers on the ground. We would have reached our full establishment. But having said that, it is the beyond and end all is not to increase quantity, but to enhance quality. Because 2 years ago we had the same number of police officers. Everywhere you turn you saw police officers, roadblocks. A few moments later was not by accident. It was proper planning for having police officers out in the street, high visibility, a rapid response, a powerful deterrent. You jump over a wall, by the time you get back over, we were there. Because we put these systems, we had the technology, we had the units from the Special Operational Response Team, the Operational Command Center, the Commissioner's Command Center, the Emergency Response Patrol, covert operatives, the technology that put an end to kidnapping. Never before in Trinidad and Tobago we were actually apprehending kidnappers whilst we still had the victims. All of these things, you would expect that in this budget, you would have been able to push the initiatives that worked 2 years ago. But out of incompetence, if not bad line, nothing here. So all he did was a repeat of the same things we did before, but there's a difference in pushing these things and understanding how to implement them.
I want to get back to that gap, that 8-year gap that you spoke about, but I want to include Norman here. Gary spoke about the 8-year gap because whilst he was in office, certain things were put in place, and then after the meeting office, things were thrown out. And all of a sudden in the budget now, you find that the things that would have been stopped 8 years ago, creating a gap and creating the space for things to fall apart. Is it the same from the maritime perspective?
Well, I have to agree with everything he said before. To actually support it on that convention center issue, something years ago, when I joined, I trained there. And since then they have been refurbishing that place again. And it's constantly...
Is this the convention center that Ms. Studios was held?
No, it's not a convention center next to the defense force. This is which used to be the Brazil, and then it was deleted into the hotel. It was a hotel before. So since something is only years ago, they're refurbishing things. And each year, they're doing it again for more and more recruits, and nothing happens. So the accountability issue is what is very important. Where the money comes and what they are doing. So the things that they say they're doing and they haven't done, they haven't been held accountable for. So for instance, in this budget here, the NTA gap, they're set to put money into the vehicles. Where are the vehicles going? What has happened to those vehicles? The only thing consistent with this government is additional. So when Mr. Hines comes out and says that the government is not using, or the police is not using 7.6 to 5.6 they continuously lie. That's the oldest thing. And I have here a copy of the budget statement, and I quote for you from Minister Inglewood. Our Cape class patrol boats with a range of 3,000 nautical miles and 28 days of stay are maintaining a consistent presence in our territorial and international waters, providing a maritime security net. That's a blatant lie. And have you anybody passing in front of us that told they will steal all the boats back? The boats are going nowhere. And then he further go on to tell you ensuring the effectiveness operational maintenance of boats. And vessels parked up there for all kind of minor things that they are not putting the money into. Why? It's one reason. True. Some of the assets were procured by different administrations. And political interference gets involved. And Gary will let you know, because they were procured by a different administration, they decided to leave them there and say that that administration purchased these vessels and they're no longer able to. The vessels are carrying out the port. There's a Chinese vessel that is called OP-42 that came from China. Good vessel. But down there on the check, and you look into some investigative journalism, you will find out that they have been put down there for minor things. But when a vessel is put down for minor things, it escalates and it becomes a major thing. But they didn't want to use it. The real reasons behind it is that they didn't want to use it because of the procurement and the administration. So they start to politicize crime, they start to politicize border control, they start to politicize every single thing. It's affecting us right now.
But what about the preventative maintenance of these maritime assets?
Well, there's none right now. No, absolutely not. Frankly, they're not giving the sailors the resources for the vessels to go out. So this, I'll give you point 3. The electrical power shore supply system of Coast Guard jetties in Tobago are being upgraded to allow for vessel generators to be de-energized while utilizing shore supplies, thereby reducing fuel consumption and lengthening the lifespan of the jet. Since I was there, they've been
And that's a basic thing for anyone who's a boat owner.
before the vessels were even procured, they were told this before, that this is needed to be done. We're talking about something about 27 years ago. But in subsequent budgets, they keep repeating the same thing. That's what we say. But no one's holding accountable for it. So it was supposed to be done. Where the money went, where it was via to, no one knows because no one asked those questions. And the upgrade system wasn't done. Then the vessels come, then they go back again and they repeat the same thing. The generators fail on the vessels, and then what happens? Put the vessels down. And then we have incompetent people leading at the job. So another frank truth. We have a lot of political hacks that have been placed in positions and have gone up the ranks because of that. They either put their finger on their lips and just follow what the political director says, because everyone knows that the chief of defense staff above, in the rank of major above, you have to be politically inclined. And then you have those who just sit and do nothing and just go to the job. Now, we have to confront it. Because there are a lot of individuals, crime specialists, strategists, commentators of all sorts of international security. And they comment also in intelligence.
What's the block thereof?
Yeah, before you mention, specific to the budget, there were 8 things that were identified as part of the fiscal package. One of those things, and I want to be very clear, to detect the importation of illegal arms, 4 new large-scale non-intrusive inspection scanners are to be acquired and deployed at the ports. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't this already in train, or were they already procured? Did you not?
Yes, so scanners were there, and then certain individuals in ports refused to use the scanners, stating that there was a concern about radiation. And then the same thing happened when I became Commissioner of Police. I understood the importance of us using the type of technology that is out there. The same technology, as I said, that the anti-kidnapping were able to make sure that you had that online reporting, the app reporting, all of these things that collapsed by the way and shut down. And with that, we put mobile scanners, and these mobile scanners have been very instrumental to be able to acquire and seize weapons illegally on the roads. Those same scanners could have been used in the ports. They refused to use it. As soon as I left as Commissioner of Police, they pulled the plug and refused to use these mobile scanners. And again, it shows, is this incompetence, or is there something that the criminal underworld has infiltrated so much into the bowels of the politicians that decisions are being made? Why would we have mobile scanners and we refuse to use it? Why would we have government vessels for 8 years and we refuse to touch it? Why we show you how we can increase the intake of recruits, and after 8 years you refuse every single thing. So in one of the 8 things they also spoke about the importance of community policing and social media. We put a police app. It was regarded among the best in the world. It got 400,000 hits. You shut it down. We had online reporting. We had SOS on your phones. You put an end to it. And what happens when you put an end to it? It means that a 13-year-old child could be raped and then now she doesn't have online reporting. She is no longer a powerful gender-based violence unit where those individuals will come to her home. So she must now go to a police station, and there's a possibility that the police station, the officers there may very well know the suspect, and then as soon as she is killed. This is a possibility. No, it's not. It actually happened. And the reason it happened is because of incompetence both by the government and the hierarchy of the police service to shut down the police app, to shut down the online reporting, to shut down the SOS, to water down it virtually, shut down the gender-based violence unit. And again, we also had a social media unit which was doing monitoring. All of these things we got from NYPD that they put an end to, yet he had the audacity in the budget to speak about working closely with our international allies. When I was Minister of National Security, we signed bilateral agreements with Colombia and Venezuela to assist us to protect Trinidad and Tobago and to deal with problems of human trafficking and illegal entry of drugs and weapons. It was the first time the Guardian National agreed that they are not going to abuse their authority and to work with Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard. That bilateral agreement that I signed as a minister 8 or 9 years ago, it no longer takes place, it no longer exists. That agreement I signed as the Commissioner of Police with the NYPD. It allowed the NYPD to train our officers in customer service training, public relations, knowing how to form the gender-based violence unit, knowing how to form the social media monitoring unit to do what is known as predictive policing, to anticipate crimes before they take place. All of these things were shut down, yet this man had the audacity to speak about it as if this is a new dynamic thing. So from the recruits, the social media monitoring unit, the Dublin vessels, the scanners, working with our US authorities, and as we go back to preventative maintenance, he spoke about trying to put $18 million into more police vehicles. But again, if you don't have preventative maintenance, we are going to go back to the same situation year after year. That is why, even though he cut my budget allocation by $300 million at a time when the police service needed it most, you still will be able to see the highest visibility because of proper preventative maintenance and putting systems to make police officers accountable to measure their performance, GPS tracking on the vehicles, making sure they stay in their area of responsibility, monitoring by an operational command center, all of which has been shut down. So when people ask, how come just 2 years ago we were at 340 murders per annum, now we're going at over 600, that is the answer.
So if I may add, so what Gary is saying here, you see the change management is very, very important. So you have the technology was there, so we have police officers with body cameras. But the change management, you have to change that mindset, that culture for them to use the body cameras. So if you bring in more technology and the change management isn't there, what's going to happen? The technology is going to lie there and get obsolete. So you're going to have technology being obsolete. So the management of that has to be important. And where does that come from? Leadership. You must have proper leadership. It starts there.
Now, gentlemen, we have to wrap. But unless Tim, you want to...
I just wanted to make a couple of points. Gary, not everybody reads our budget. We say not everybody reads our manifesto, right? I wanted to speak to those people who just interested in the idea of being sick. Now, there's a narrative being pushed by a very small amount of people that Gary was fortunate to be, I don't know how that was fortunate, to be Commissioner of Police during the pandemic, which resulted in the low numbers and that kind of stuff. I wanted to speak to people out there and explain to them in the simplest way why that was simply another lie.
Well, the only person that is really saying something as ridiculous as that was Carolina as the sheriff. So she probably had some inside information to come into actions, but that's another story. So the fact of the matter is that when you look at what happened in almost every city in northern United States during COVID, New York, Detroit, LA, Boston, Chicago, crime actually increased during COVID and then it started going down. Recently with Jamaica, there's been a drastic decrease in crime after COVID. 12%. Guyana did the same thing. So I guess Guyana, Jamaica, almost every city in the United States, they missed the Carolinas, the sheriff, they missed the PLM fanatics memo. So that was total nonsense. In fact, the reason why crime would have gone up in some places is that when it is that you had COVID, you had a pandemic, you had a state of emergency, businesses were shut down. When businesses shut down, it means many people will lose their job. When you lose your job, it's unemployment. Unemployment is a byproduct that can cause further crime to take place. And then when places open, it gives people greater opportunities. And that is what we was trying to go down. So in addition to which, the crime started going down in Trinidad and Tobago before COVID, because in early 2020, if you recall, that was the safest carnival ever. There was not one serious crime that took place, and there was a reason for that, because we locked it. It took me 18 months to put the 100+ policies in place, all of which they've shut down. And then after I left, in August 2021, in October and November, still during the SOE, still during the public health regulations, still during the state of emergency, it was the second and third highest number of murders in Trinidad and Tobago's history during that COVID period. So for the people who want to be foolish enough to believe that criminals say, well, I'm not going to commit a crime because of COVID, the data is there. We put it in place, we locked it down. After I left, as soon as Mr. Jacob pulled the plug and everything, during COVID, during the SOE, whilst he was commissioner, it was the second and third highest months. So it shows that if it is you want to pull the plug and sabotage a country, that is what you're going to get. So you could have Minister of National Security, you call it, just be wrap it up. His one comment was to speak about, again, legal firearms. 0.3%, I assume 0.3% of the country to the country's population, legal firearms. And out of that, half were to protective services members to ensure that they could be protected. And throughout that whole period, 99% of all the murders committed by firearms in the last 2 years have been by illegal firearms. 1 or 2 isolated have been through domestic violence. And again, because of you shutting down and watering down the systems I had in place to allow women to be able to make those reports based on a degree of confidentiality, understanding the sensitivity. So you've shut down everything, and you speak on a budget to lie to the country to say that the police and the defense force do not use 5.56 and 7.62 rounds. Every single person knows that almost every army and police service in the world use 5.56 and 7.62. You are a Minister of National Security. You go into Parliament in a budget debate and lie and mislead the country, either because of ignorance or you know the PNM plan. You say the same lie over and over, people believe it. Because you want to give the impression that law-abiding citizens who had ammunition is being used by criminals. It is impossible if they stuck to what I had. I had the fuel card with the chip. The chip was to ensure that every single round can be accounted for. Guess what? As soon as I left, they pulled out the fuel card with the chip, so now you can't account for the ammunition.
Why
so,
would you do that?
Either incompetence, bad mind, or there's a serious evil in this country that has penetrated from the criminal elements straight into the corridors of Parliament for you to make these decisions. Because those chips would have ensured that any citizen who will use any ammunition, you can now take it away from the fuel dealer in the range, so we can do an audit to account for all the ammunition. You pull the plug. Why did we do that? But even so, to the 5,000 persons who acquired firearms, you cannot acquire more than 50 rounds. So you multiply that 5,000 by 50 rounds. Compare that to the millions upon millions that Fitzgerald Hines is speaking about. It shows that the vast majority of the 5.56 and 7.62 would have been given to the police and to the protective services. So to the audacity of this man to mislead the country because of his incompetence and continue to put his focus on the concern of law-abiding citizens getting the right to defend themselves. And it's not just Carrie Griffith. There was a woman called Nicole Griffith for several years. She pushed just for women to get pepper spray to defend themselves. They refused. When I try to get firearms to give to law-abiding citizens to defend themselves, they are upset. It shows that this administration has more concerns over the rights of criminal elements over that of law-abiding citizens. And this budget has shown it. They have failed, they have provided nothing to show that we are thinking of something new, something dynamic, something to be able to press it home and peg back the criminals. What they have done is virtually given up, thrown in the towel, and stated they do not know what to do, and let us just hope that PNM people will just blindly support us.
I don't want to get Nico Dagger started, because Nico Dagger can start about all of the things that her family would have experienced over the years in terms of the weaponization of state assets against her family. So she's not going to go there. Nico Dagger is also not going to talk about the petition that she would have started to ensure that both the Minister of National Security and the Commissioner of Police demit office with immediate effect, which was then summarily removed from the petition side. Nico Dagger is not going to talk about those things. So therefore, I will go to Norma. As we wrap, Norma, much of what both you and Barry would have spoken to is accountability.
Yes.
We We still sit here, we have this conversation, we're still heading towards a murder rate potentially of about 600 per annum at the end of this year if the trajectory maintains. We still have people who are heads of protected services who assassination attempts, brazen attempts are being perpetrated against them. We're losing children left, right and center. We have a society that apparently bacchanal and drama seems to be the panacea for this society.
Yes.
That we run after the next drama. All of these things taking place right in front of our eyes and the society is on mute.
Correct.
How do we move forward from here as Iraq? Norman and then Derek.
Well, interestingly enough, and Tim mentioned that the majority of people in Trinidad will not read this budget. And it's here in the statement, and the government knows that they can get away with these things because the people of Trinidad and Tobago will not take the time to read this document and hold them accountable for it. Just as you mentioned, when you put your petition, no one will take the time to hold anyone accountable. So the petition is up there. We do things, and then we ask what. So I would just take in my closing remarks a quote from Minister Ingles' statement. He says, "From the data, the roadmap of addressing of security and safety is as straightforward as it is distinctive." For me, it's straightforward and distinctive. Heinz must go. Hoover must go. This government, President must go. It's clear. It's written. Information is here for you to go out and read. And for us to have and hold them accountable, we must remove them from office.
Terry?
So it is said, so it must be done. And what we spoke about so far as it pertains to the budget, it shows that what this country has now come to is what I continue to speak about, known as democratic dictatorship. You use your constitution carefully to be able to turn this country into a police state. It is only in a police state that a president can break the law, not adhere to her responsibility, not do her job, and still remain as a president. It is only that in a democratic dictatorship, in a dictatorial society, that a prime minister can use president's house as a post office, meet with an independent institution head, and then give a piece of paper from a civilian, not an official report, because Mr. Barrington was one of two persons, so it was never an official report, and then utilize that, and there's no call for an election. It is only in a country like this that a head of a police service commission could break the law and decide to put back a merit list without the approval of the police service commission. It is only in this country that a police service commission will resign in disgust and nothing is done. It is only in this country that we see now that a citizen could put a petition to demand that people are removed, and you run to try to block it and have it removed because you do not want anyone to protest against you. It is only in a country of democratic dictatorship that your phones can be intercepted illegally, because a whistleblower showed me the document and it confirmed that phones were being intercepted illegally by political opponents of this government. It is only in democratic dictatorship that we'll have a situation that the FIU could abuse their authority and dig up into the accounts of persons without any red flag, any trigger, any evidence, any witness. And then when all of this happens, we have a budget presentation with absolutely nothing, not one document, not one policy, nothing to give the country one word: hope. There's absolutely no hope available because it is either based on incompetence or that this government has now become part and parcel, aided and abetted in supporting criminal elements. This country, the only way this country can be saved is if this government is removed as quickly as possible, democratically.
I know despite Norman's plea for people to read, they're not going to read. But I want you all to consider one very important thing. How did you feel? You see, beyond the numbers, beyond the budget presentation, beyond the statistics, I want to appeal to people to think about how you felt, and if you felt safe and secure when my friend here, Gary, was a part of that national security apparatus, or you felt safe and secure now? That is something I feel that is the thing that we should all be considering on a day-to-day basis.
That has been the NTA Live post-budget conversation on issues pertaining to national safety and security. I'm Nicole Dyer. Thank you so very much,